Hello everyone, welcome back to Fulltechstack. This is part 4 of important Angular interview questions and answers. In this part, we are going to discuss the following 5 questions. I highly recommend you watching previous parts as well if you have not watched them yet. Let us begin. What are services in Angular? We know that in a large Angular application, we can have a lot of models, views, components, and we can also have multiple modules for grouping these components. Now, suppose we have some common logic or code that we want across these modules. Then we use services. So we can say that services are created to share common functionalities like logger, authentication, or any other common logic across multiple modules or components. Also, note that services in Angular are simple TypeScript classes with injectable decorator. You see here we have a simple TypeScript class logger. Now, if I'll add @injectable decorator to it, then Angular will know that this is a service. Next popular question that you will have to face in almost every interview directly or indirectly is what is dependency injection? Dependency injection is actually an application design pattern in which we inject our service via constructor instead of instantiating it within the class. For better understanding, let us look at this snippet. Here we have a class logger which is decorated with injectable decorator here, which makes it a service. But please note that adding injectable decorator to a class make it a service, but it does not mean that we cannot have a service without injectable decorator. It is absolutely possible to have a service without it, by just adding your service to provider array in our app module. Now, if I wish to use log form method from logger service that we just created in my app component, so I simply can go to app component and instantiate the logger class using the new keyword like this. And we can access the log form method. But when we adapt dependency injection pattern, we simply have to add logger service in the provider array of ng module, which provides the visibility of logger service throughout the application. And then we can simply inject the service in our app component and access the log form method like this. Now, let us discuss the benefit of dependency injection. By this line, we mean that we are providing logger service to our application. But in case you want to configure this injector with an alternative provider to deliver the logging functionality, then we have to go to all the instances that we have created for the logger service and replace the service with the new service, which definitely isn't a good approach. And solution to this problem is dependency injection. Let us see how. I can simply go to my app module and in the provider array, I'll provide the logger service with this alternative logger service. Provide logger use class alternative logger. What this line actually doing is telling the injector to return alternative logger when the component asks for logger using this logger service token. So you see that by simply changing this bit of code, we avoided replacing the logger service with alternative service everywhere. So we can say that DI helps us to decouple class dependencies so as to avoid fuss of changing code everywhere when we add or replace a new dependency. Next question is scope of a service. Scope of service means the limit or reach of the visibility of a service in or across the Angular applications. And in Angular we basically have 5 provider scopes. First one is module scope, which can be defined by providing module name in provided in property inside the injectable decorator. And by this we are limiting the scope of our service to this specific module. Next is component scope. In this we add the provider in the provider array inside component decorator to limit the scope of a service to a specific component, we can say. Root scope. It was introduced in Angular 6, which allows us to register the service throughout the application without even adding provider to component or ng module. And for setting root scope, we simply set the value as root for provided in property inside injectable decorator. Platform scope. It was introduced in Angular 9 and is defined in provided in with value as platform, which is a level created on top of root modules as platform module. It provides a singleton instance of the service to all the applications running in a same window, which means that we can share a single instance of the service across multiple applications that are running in a same window, also including the lazy loaded modules that we discussed in the previous part. And the last one is any injector. It was also introduced in Angular 9 with syntax provided in any. And providing a service like this means that every lazy loaded module can have their own instance, and all the eagerly loaded modules will share the single instance provided by the root module. Another very common question is, what is difference between inject and injectable? If you are being asked this question in an interview, guys, trust me, the difference is pretty simple. It's just their names that sound similar. Inject decorator is used to manually inject the dependency by taking injector token as the parameter. And then this token is used to locate the dependency in the provider. Whereas injectable decorator can be considered as a shortcut of having to decorate every parameter in your constructor with inject. And so that we don't have to decorate all our constructor arguments with @inject decorator, we simply use @injectable decorator. This was it for this part, guys. If you have any sort of doubt or queries, please feel free to reach out to us via the comment section. Thank you so much for watching.